You are listening to the Speech Space Podcast, a podcast full of tips and resources for SLPs. I'm your host, Jessica Cassidy,
and this is episode 22. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me today as we learn about cluttering. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that I've created a free handout to go with this episode called Characteristics of People Who Clutter. That and the show notes can be accessed at bit.ly/cluttering podcast. That's bit.ly/cluttering podcast. So I'd like to start off with a definition of cluttering, and I actually came across quite a few whenever I was looking into finding a nice definition for you guys. So I'm going to read all three, and you guys can kind of pull different pieces of information from each one. So let's start off. The International Cluttering Association defines cluttering as a fluency disorder characterized by a rate that is perceived to be abnormally rapid, irregular, or both for the speaker. These rate abnormalities further are manifest in one or more of the following symptoms: an excessive number of disfluencies, the majority of which are not typical of people who stutter, and the frequent placement of pauses and use of prosodic patterns that do not conform to syntactic and semantic constraints, and inappropriate, usually excessive, degrees of co-articulation among sounds, especially in multisyllabic words. Now, according to ASHA, they define cluttering as a syndrome characterized by a speech delivery rate which is either abnormally fast, irregular, or both. In cluttered speech, the person's speech is affected by one or more of the following: 1. Failure to maintain normally expected sound, syllable, phrase, and pausing patterns. And 2. Evidence of greater than expected incidents of disfluency, the majority of which are unlike those typical of people who stutter. So if you notice, there were a few similarities between both of those definitions from ASHA and the International Cluttering Association. And I'm going to share one more with you. One from St. Louis and Schultz. They propose a working definition of cluttering that focuses upon specific aspects of speech that must be present for a diagnosis of cluttering. Their definition states, cluttering is a fluency disorder wherein segments of conversation in the speaker's native language typically are perceived as too fast overall, too irregular, or both. The segments of rapid and/or irregular speech rate must further be accompanied by one or more of the following: excessive normal disfluencies, excessive collapsing or deletion of syllables, and/or abnormal pauses, syllable stress, or speech rhythm. Now, cluttering falls under the umbrella of stuttering and often coexists with stuttering, although not always. And what's interesting is that unlike people who stutter, people who clutter generally are unaware of their speech errors until someone else points it out to them. The predictive cluttering inventory, which was developed by David Daly, can be a helpful component in determining whether or not a person clutters. There are 4 different areas that are assessed using this instrument: pragmatics, speech motor, language cognition, and motor coordination writing problems. Now, within those areas, you rate your student or client on a scale of 0 to 6, with 0 being never and 6 being always. Scores of 120 plus are indicative of a cluttering disorder, and scores of 80 to 20 are indicative of being a clutterer stutterer. The Predictive Cluttering Inventory, the PCI, is free, and it's only 1 page long. I will be sure to provide you guys with a link to that in the show notes for today's episode. I do want to put in a quick disclaimer that the PCI is preliminary and has not been subjected to empirical examination for validity or reliability at the time of this recording. So because of this, it's recommended that this inventory be used as a piece of the puzzle rather than the sole criterion for a cluttering diagnosis. Now, Daly cites a dozen indicators that are common with cluttering, so I'm going to go through those for you guys. He actually even cites more than a dozen, but we're going to stick to the dozen today. So firstly, poor awareness and self-monitoring, condensing words, rapid rate with poor intelligibility. Some speech therapists are known to refer to this rapid rate as machine gun speech. Run-on sentences and lack of pausing. Imprecise articulation, which we might refer to as mushy or slurred speech. An irregular speech rate, where the person might speak in little bursts or spurts. Interjections, fillers, and revisions. Compulsive talking with circumlocutions. Disorganized language and treble sequencing. Repetitions of multisyllabic words and phrases. No excessive effort observed during disfluencies, and their speech is often better under pressure. So now those are just general characteristics for someone to be a person who clutters. They do not by any means need to meet all of those criteria. Those are just some examples. So now that we have a pretty good idea of what cluttering might look like, what do we do about it? Therapy goals address the symptoms of each client since cluttering symptoms can vary from person to person. Some examples of treatment objectives include increasing awareness, working on things like self-monitoring, attention span, thought organization, pragmatics, breath support, reducing disfluencies, and motor skills. There's actually a really great chart from the National Stuttering Association that provides a nice visual for differentiating between stuttering and cluttering, and I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes today as well. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me at jessica@thespeechspace.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes to help other speech pathologists like you be able to find the show. Like I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to access the show notes, which include links to the resources mentioned in today's episode, in addition to the free handout that I created, you want to go to bit.ly/cluttering podcast. That's bit.ly/cluttering podcast. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will catch you guys next week.